Welcome to FinScale, a podcast created by Solène Niederkorn, shedding light on innovation in finance, banking, and insurance.
Collaboration breeds innovation. Rita Martins, Head of FinTech Partnerships at HSBC.
The program, we hired ex-founders or ex-entrepreneurs that were external to HSBC to come and work for HSBC for a period of 7 months as a contractor. And really the idea is that they move from ideas into solutions. At the end of the program, they will have a prototype. And if it's successful, if both parties want to progress further, then there is opportunity for a spin-off in which, of course, the entrepreneurs also will have a role in the spin-off. So in simple terms, it's almost like creating a mini startup within the bank, which is super interesting.
How does a huge financial group such as HSBC foster a culture of innovation internally while collaborating with FinTechs? This is exactly what I sought to understand when speaking to my latest guest, Rita. She gets straight to the point and provides definitive examples without sugarcoating the requirements global functions such as legal or risk need to have in place at a global level. We delve into how startups are identified and selected, procurement management, the implementation of the proof of concept, as well as the all-important results. We also deep dive into a use case where a natural language generation company based in France is serving a risk team based in Hong Kong. We also speak about the internal innovation programs within the group, whether through VC investment with HSBC Ventures, staff training focused on innovation initiative design in conjunction with Oxford, or the intrapreneurship, the HSBC Entrepreneur in Residence project. Enjoy listening. Hi, everyone. Hi, Rita.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. Very happy to have you on FinScale. You kindly accepted my invitation a few weeks ago. Thank you for that. Can you please present yourself before we start digging into HSBC and all the partnerships that you build with FinTech?
So I'm really happy to be here today. I'm Rita Martins. I'm currently the head of FinTech partnerships at HSBC. Mm-hmm. My career actually started in the consulting world. So I have done, I believe, around 8 years in consulting with Ernst & Young and also Accenture, still helping financial services company to see how they could leverage technology for their strategy. And around 4 years ago, I moved into HSBC, where I currently am the bridge between startups or small companies and HSBC stakeholders. So it's a very, very interesting role for sure.
And very different from what you were doing as a consultant, I believe.
Yes, some things are different because I'm now part of a big corporation like HSBC, so it brings its own challenges and opportunities. But some things are also similar. So, for example, just leveraging the understanding of a process or a businesses, and then how a technology could help those businesses. So that goes across both consulting and the role that I'm doing nowadays.
Okay, thank you very much. So HSBC, maybe you could remind us in terms of figures, what it represents, and in terms of activities. And you have you're head of partnerships of FinTechs at global functions. So can you please explain to us what it means?
Sure. Yeah. So HSBC, it's one of the largest banking and financial services organizations in the world. The way they set up is they have two big teams. So they have the global businesses, which are the businesses that drive customer growth and that have the direct customer interaction. And they typically the teams that you'll think when you think of a bank. So are the teams that speak with retail customers, with institutional customers. The ones that I support are the global functions. And the global functions are the supporting functions for the bank. So include teams like finance, risk, compliance, procurement, marketing, IT, for example, as well. And really the global functions that go across the globe. I believe currently we are serving 63 countries and territories from HSBC. So the global functions is actually quite a big remit, but it's really interesting because the opportunity here is that if you have a solution or use case that you're working with one of the teams, then there is opportunity to leverage across all the other global functions as well.
Okay, excellent. So can you please explain to us what is your mission statement?
So my main mission statement is really drive innovation at HSBC by leveraging partnerships with FinTechs. So in big organizations, you typically have the conversation of should we build, should we buy, or should we partner? And really my main goal is to make sure that I'm part of the ecosystem, the external ecosystem of FinTechs. And FinTechs is just technology companies that serve financial services. Mm-hmm. So it's really small, nimble companies. So being part of the ecosystem, identifying potential startups that could help solve for our problems, and then not only make the introduction to the internal stakeholders, but also help them throughout the full cycle. So from the discussions to the POC to then the full implementation.
Usually how it happens, it's the finance function or the risk function identify a need they have to improve one specific process. How does it happen? How do you hear about the needs from those global functions?
Yeah, exactly. So we try and start with the problem. So what is the problem that they have? And it could be really specific things like they need an automation tool, or it could be much more generic around I have this process that goes across multiple countries and we don't have a good understanding or ability to do some analysis for it. So it can be as specific or wider as they make it sometimes. And then what we do is we go to the markets and we identify what are the best players that could help us solve for that problem. So we start with a long list of companies that we want to have a conversation with. And then from that long list in those conversations, we go into a short list of 2 to 3 companies that we potentially want to engage further. The global functions team, they're part of those conversations as well, because we want to make sure that they meet some of the companies from the start. And we make sure that we present them companies that also look into the problem slightly in a different ways. So they see really small companies or they see big companies, because that way they have a breadth of what is available in the market. And then from the short list of the 3 companies, we might say, okay, one of those companies, let's actually move further and do a POC, which is a proof of concept. Mm-hmm. So we can really test the solution, because HSBC is such a complex bank that we want to make sure that we want to test with our data, with our systems, to make sure that this vendor or this company does really help us with our problem. And then if it's successful, then we go into implementation. If it's not successful for many reasons, sometimes it's just timing as well. From the company side, they're too young, for example, or from our side, we're actually not ready to progress further. Or if actually we realize that the vendor does not solve our problem and we want to look for something else. So if in those situations where it doesn't work or it's not successful, then what we do is we go back to the start and we say, okay, let's redefine our problem based on what we have learned. Mm-hmm. So it's never a learning, it's always a learning concept, and it's never a lost opportunity, even if some of those conversations are not successful.
And how do you prioritize? Because, I mean, if at the same time you have compliance and risk, highlighting key pain points, and that they absolutely need you to solve those pain points, how do you define who is more a bigger priority than the other?
So one of the things that we're trying to do exactly because of that, because we are a small team, so we want to enable those teams to also start having these conversations. So some of them, we drive them ourselves. We try and say the first one, we come with us on the journey and we're going to help you drive those conversations. But at the end of the day, I want them to learn how to do it. So then they can go and do all the different conversations without having us. So we run quarterly demo days in which we bring specific companies based on specific topics. So like, for example, last quarter we had democratizing AI, in which we had companies that do the training, AI as a service, the GPT-3, which is like the new generation of AI. So those demo days is for teams to come and also start seeing some of those companies. And sometimes they just say, okay, I want this specific fintech to go and have a conversation. So you skip a few steps, which allows you as well to help them. But if you have different teams that have different priorities, it's also around which one has really the sponsorship, because you want to make sure that you have the right sponsorship to have those conversations. And then it's also around which problem can be applicable to more teams, because if you solve that problem within, let's say, finance, and it's applicable across risk and compliance, then it's a bigger win, because you can then just scale across all the other teams.
And you were talking about ecosystems. Are you concentrated on the UK one, or do you see what is happening also in Europe or in the US? Because there are plenty of fintech everywhere in the world.
Yeah, so we look globally, to be honest. We look in UK, Europe, US, and also Asia.
Okay. You were talking about that long list of fintech that you were selecting. What are the main criteria? And I've seen on your website that you have a very specific onboarding process in place. Can you please explain to us more into the details how it's looking like?
So in terms of the criteria, when we look at companies, we try and look at three main areas. So the first one is the technology. So what technology are they leveraging? What is the product they have? Could that problem help us solve for the problem that we have internally? The second one is the vision. So how are they thinking to continuously improve that problem? How are they continuously thinking about bringing new ideas to the table and challenging us as well? And the third one, which it's not talked as often when we have these conversations, is the people side. So who are the founders? What experience do they have? But also the team that it's part of, the POC, for example, can they collaborate very well with the team who is on our sides? Because these are two very different companies. You have on one side the fintech, which is a smaller, nimble company, and especially when they are in the beginning, you tend to see that the people are much more technology savvy, so they talk in the technology way. While if you look at a big bank, you will have typically much more business processes people. And because of the complexity of the bank, it also takes a bit longer to have some of the conversations, to have some of the approvals, because you have so many different stakeholders. And like you're saying, the onboarding process, it's something that also takes a bit longer. Around the onboarding, so the procurement team have done last year this, we call it fast track onboarding for fintechs POCs, for low risk POCs, in which we are not sharing restricted data. So we're only sharing public or dummy mask data.
Of course.
And there is no systems integrations yet. So it's what we call the low risk POCs. And for those ones, the procurement streamlined the process so much that now it takes us just a couple of weeks. So it's also trying to simplify some of the processes that we have internally.
Okay, and the procurement process also integrates audits, IT audit, cyber risk, and things like that?
Yeah, so it integrates IT. So as part of the onboarding process, we have a few different approvals that we need to have. So one of them is the IT. So we always need to speak with the IT to make sure that the technology that we bring into the bank is aligned with their long-term strategy. So one of the key questions that we always get asked is, okay, what is the delivery methods? Is it on the cloud? Is it on-prem? What is the cloud exit strategy? We also have buyer conversations, which are the people that make sure that the data that we're sharing, if it's masked, that it's masked correctly, that we're not sharing any data that we shouldn't. So those two approvals, no matter what's the onboarding process that we have, they're always part of it. And then the cybersecurity, depending again on what POC you're doing, we also engage with them.
And could you take a few examples of successful collaboration? And what I would like to understand through these examples is whether or not you took the product as a standard one, or you asked for very specific fine-tuning or parameters according to your own requirements.
So one example that we have currently, the team is actually onboarding in Hong Kong. To your question around do we look globally? So this team, this company, it's a natural language generation company. It's called NLG. And what it does, it's for example, at HSBC, we have all this reporting that nowadays we have manually someone commenting, for example, on the differences between last period and this period, and then why that happened. So NLG uses AI to create some of those level 1 commentary at scale. And the company, the actual company, they're based in France, funny enough. And the team who is engaging with them is based in Hong Kong. It's our risk team, and they're currently implementing it. But also as part of the implementation and having those conversations with cybersecurity and so on, we are sharing with the other functions. So we're sharing with finance, with compliance team to say, is this something that you guys would also benefit? Mm-hmm. And in this case specifically, so we took what they have, but we also have additional requirements. Mm-hmm. So for example, the dashboards, I don't remember which one they have. I think they had Power BI, and one of the teams uses Click as well. So we said, we spoke with the company and we said, okay, when are you guys actually going to be looking at Click? Is that part of your journey? And if so, can we push it a bit forward to make sure that when it's live, we have both Power BI and Click? Mm-hmm. So we typically take it as it is, but we'll probably ask for some additional functionalities or make sure that it's part of the company's roadmap. And if it's part of the roadmap, see what we can do with the company to bring it a bit forward.
Very interesting. Thank you for mentioning that example. What can be, because there are certainly, you would lie if you say me no, what can be the frictions and complexities in a huge group such as HSBC? And I know this because I've been working for quite a while at UBS, so this is something I know. And how do you try to solve those complexities, I mean, in the relationship that you build with those fintech?
Yeah, so I mean, one of them that we're talking already, it's around the stakeholder group. So at HSBC, because it's such a big organization, you have a bigger stakeholder group than you'll have at a small company. So like we're saying, as part of our innovation stakeholders, we have IT, compliance, and risk involved in the conversations. And what we found that really helps solve for that or speed up some of those conversations is having the same stakeholders, the same people, part of the same conversations, because then they understand what are the risks and opportunities of some of these conversations with the companies, but also they have the background of what we have done before. So it's not starting from the beginning with someone from IT, for example, who doesn't have the background. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the key things that really helps speeding up some of the frictions. Because it takes a bit longer around stakeholder management.
And in the end, who gives the green light? Is it you, or is it somebody in the headquarters? Is it finance?
It's a combination of people,
okay.
Of course. So we'll need to have the business getting approval. We need to get IT giving approval, and depending on who is paying for it as well. So the budget owner will have to give green light as well.
Well, it's always the budget in the end. Final decision. Okay, you have an entrepreneur in residence program. I find it very interesting. Can you say a few words about it, and what is the intention here?
Yeah, so it was the first ever program of its kind that we have launched at HSBC. So it was very exciting. And let me first explain what does it mean, what is the program. So the program, we hired ex-founders or ex-entrepreneurs that were external to HSBC to come and work for HSBC for a period of 7 months as a contractor. And really the idea is that they move from ideas into solutions. At the end of the program, they will have a prototype. And if it's successful, if both parties want to progress further, then there is opportunity for a spin-off in which, of course, the entrepreneurs also will have a role in the spin-off. So in simple terms, it's almost like creating a mini startup within the bank, which is super interesting. And we created because we wanted to bring, first of all, some external ideas, new ideas into the bank, but also we wanted to make sure that we're getting the right talent for specific areas that are strategic for HSBC. There are either new areas for us or new areas for us and the industry. So we want to make sure that we have specific talent that's looking into it and generating new ideas and working with us.
And how do you recruit? I don't know if we can say recruit or select those entrepreneurs.
So we shared we hired, in this case, an agency, but also we shared with our community. So sharing on LinkedIn, sharing with VCs, sharing with accelerators to make sure that actually we wanted, one of the key things was that they were founders before. They had a company before. And we only had a conversation. We had a conversation with so many people. Most of them were founders. And funny enough, one of the founders that we actually hired, we hired because their previous company didn't succeed. And that for us was super important because they have failed. So it means they have learned so much that those learnings they can bring to us and make sure that we don't fail together.
Okay, interesting. And do you already have results about that program? Did you already make a spin-off?
Not yet. So It's still very new. We have the 2 founders live with us, one in the UK, one in the US. Mm-hmm. And it's still very early days, so we don't have spin-offs yet.
So we speak next year to see the results?
Yes, let's speak next year.
Okay, excellent. Rita, can you say a few words about HSBC Ventures, because you also have a venture vehicle within the group, and I don't know if you're I believe you are well connected with them, but I would find interesting to talk about that just 2 minutes.
Sure. So at HSBC, we have different versions of the partnerships. We're just talking about the IR, which is a slightly different one. But 2 main vehicles that we have for partnerships are the following. So the first one is the one that we're just talking about around using or buying the product of a company. The second one is the investments, like we were saying, Celine. And we only invest in companies that are strategic for us. And by strategic, it means that either some of the functions, for example, are using the product or that they see value in using the product in the future. So our team and the investment team, we always in collaboration and connecting, because for them to invest into a company, to be strategic, they need to speak with us to make sure that it's a key problem or a strategic area for us from the business side.
And what is the size of the funds raised? Do you have an idea?
So we invest from Series A to growth, although we have invested in companies a bit young, especially in new areas where the industry it's pretty small. We have made, I believe, around 30 investments, and it's around 3 million to 15 million across the funding stages.
Per ticket?
Yes.
Yeah, but globally, do you have an idea of the size of the vehicles?
I don't know how much we have globally, to be honest.
Okay, no worry. That's okay. Another point that I found interesting is that you have a collaboration with Oxford, because you really, I love it, because I see that you have specific programs internally for your collaborators, employees to learn about innovation. And I'm mentioning innovation because sometimes there is a misunderstanding and mix between transformation and innovation. So can you tell us a bit about that program and what it covers?
Yeah, sure. So we wanted to bring a program that really covers the technologies that are being leveraged by FinTechs and how we at HSBC can work with small companies. So we're just talking about global functions. Global functions go across the globe. We're talking about thousands of people that we have. So my team cannot help each team specifically. So we want to give them a tool for them to actually learn some of the how do you work with some of the small companies. The program covers the 3 main technologies, so AI and ML. The second one is the platform companies, and the third one is the blockchain technology, which is something very new. And we also have, within the course, we also have some of the platforms or tools that we have internally that help us connect with companies. So, for example, we mentioned the demo day. We mentioned a database that we have internally that has all the different conversations that we have across the globe with some of the companies, and also has our Idea Hub tool in which we ask everyone to come and put their ideas of how we could solve our problem.
And how, why did you choose Oxford? There is a specific knowledge there in that university that you don't find somewhere else?
Yeah, so we spoke with a few different universities. We found that Oxford definitely has the right expertise, but also we found that the Oxford training was the best one for us to leverage. So actually, I went and did the course myself before the full course. So it's a 6 weeks course if you go and do it full. And I really wanted to see like what was not just the best expertise, but the course that really covered what we want to do. And we work with Pina, who is the lady from the Oxford, and she has a breadth of experience, to be honest, within the fintech world. And also she can explain it really well. And that's something that we are looking for.
Okay, very exciting. Rita, if one fintech founder listens to us, what would you recommend if they wanted to, his company or her company wants to build a relationship with you? What is the easiest way to get connected with your team?
The easiest way these days is really social media, so LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Reach out to us. Do tell us what is your company about and what you're looking for to connecting with HSBC. I think that's the main thing. So feel free to reach out, but to tell me what is your company about and what is your vision? What would you like to get out of the conversation? And then we can either connect you with the right people, or if it's not the right time, we'll make sure that we'll reply to you and let you know.
Okay, excellent. One last question, because we didn't talk about that at all. And I see that you cover this also in your function. It's the positioning of HSBC regarding the Web3.
Yes, the Web3, I mean, it's a very new area for us in the industry, but it's very interesting. I think it's still very much early days in which we're trying to understand the technology, we're trying to understand the different business cases, and we are already connecting with companies within this space and making some experiments internally in specific sandboxes, so slightly separate from the experience just because it's such a new area. And also we're looking into seeing how, for example, from the training side that we were just talking about, how could we train our internal colleagues around what is Web3, because Web3 encompasses so many new ideas and so many new concepts.
Of course.
That first of all, it's explaining internally, and then getting some of those ideas of what could it mean for us, what could be the new business models.
And what trends are you following specifically?
So there's a few trends. The first one is really around just infrastructure. So blockchain as infrastructure is something that we have already been using for a while, but also thinking where else could we be using blockchain. I'm also quite interested more recently around the digital identity part of it, because one of the key things within Web3 that I don't think the industry have figured out yet is there is no way of knowing who is the person that it's doing, for example, within DeFi. So the problem within DeFi right now is that you have over-collateralization. You need to put more money than what you're getting because there is not that digital identity, which is something that if you look at the bank currently in the traditional finance, it's something that we do pretty well. So it's interesting to see how some of the new companies are thinking about that. Some companies I have seen that they're thinking around creating NFTs, for example, for Know Your Customer, which is very interesting, different model. And the companies, for example, are thinking around the soul-bound tokens, which is something that I have been thinking about as well. So it's very early days, but I think digital identity will be something that once it's cracked, will enable some of the other concepts. Clearly. Within Web3.
Clearly. Okay, Rita, thank you very much. We've already talked almost 30 minutes. Before leaving and closing the conversation, would you recommend us something to read or to listen?
Yes. So I think in terms of reading, I read this book a while back and I love it. It's called I'm Feeling Lucky from Douglas Edwards. I don't know if you know the book.
No.
No. So it's the Confessions of Google Employee number 59. Okay. It was written in 2011. And what I found fascinating is it starts when Google was really small. So it starts off when they were really a startup, and then it talks through the whole journey that they were growing from a startup to a scale-up, and now this big company that they are nowadays, from an employee who is just learning how he was doing his job and failing as he was doing it. So I found super interesting because some of the things I definitely see when I speak with the startups nowadays that they're making some mistakes. But also it's interesting from a big bank to read some of those problems or concerns that they have from the other sides, because it helps me understand when I'm speaking with some of the startups, but also makes me much more motivated to continue doing what I'm doing. And even when you fail, I mean, they created this massive company in the end. So super interesting.
That looks very interesting. Thank you very much, Rita. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for listening and sharing this moment with us. Don't hesitate to contact me on Twitter or LinkedIn to share your comments and reactions. You can also rate this episode on your favorite podcast platform. See you soon.